Great to have you along for the ride. Thanks a lot for stopping by. Really glad to have this man back. District 13 Republican, great state of Texas. It is Ronny Jackson. Doc, how are you? Good to see you.
Good, Joe. Thank you for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Hey, President's in town today in Austin. That's an interesting move. We'll talk about that in a second. And then you've got the vice president, the current vice president, Kamala Harris in Houston. I'm not sure what that's going to do. Just give me your overall thoughts. We're about a week and a half away. I'm feeling really good about it. He's dominating in all of these appearances that he's doing. She's floundering like crazy, even on like complicit CNN. What do you think about the race a week and a half out? We'll talk about Texas specifically in a second.
Here's what I think, Joe. I think that if it's a fair race, and I know it won't be completely fair, but if it's reasonably fair, he is going to destroy her. It's going to be overwhelming. He's going to win big, right? The problem that I have, Joe, is I'm not trying to be too pessimistic about this whole thing. He's got all the momentum right now, too. I mean, the momentum is in his direction. Everything is going his way. This is going to be his. He's already won this in my mind. However, I am still seriously worried about what's going to happen in places like Pennsylvania. I think that they are just hardwired for fraud in that state in particular, but some of the other places up in the Northeast as well. I'm really worried about what they're going to do. I think they learned a lot from 2020. They got these unsolicited mail-in ballots. They realized they could, have everybody and their dog receive one of these, whether they actually got it or not. Somebody could pick that thing up, harvest it, fill it out, stick it in a box.
Yes.
They could drag their ability to count the votes out by days and weeks. I'm already hearing them up there in Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. They're warning voters that, oh my gosh, don't expect a result on election night. It may be weeks before we can tell you who won the race in our state. That's absolutely ridiculous. How come places like California and Florida and Texas, they can count the vote, in a reasonable amount of time, but these swing states can't count the votes? That's absolute garbage, right? And so I'm really worried that they're going to. I honestly think. I mean, I think you agree with me. I've been shocked over the last few years. There's absolutely nothing they won't do to stop Donald Trump from going back to the White House. They are terrified of the man, right?
Yes.
Rightfully so, because he's the one that started draining the swamp. And when he gets back, he's going to finish the job he started. And he knows how to do it this time. He didn't, he's not going to have to figure it out like he did for the first few, months or the first year or so when he got there. He didn't understand the system. He knows how the system works now. They are in serious trouble and they know it.
It's Representative Ronny Jackson. As you know, I'm here in Texas where you are. Most of my stations are in Texas. Well, the largest number are in Texas. The second largest are in Michigan. Michigan is scared. Michigan's scared to death because they do know what happened in 2020. They saw some tomfoolery that they weren't even allowed to bring to a judge. They kept saying nobody had standing, even with affidavits saying, I saw this, that, and the other. So the one thing that's buoying me, and I wonder if you agree, is that even in a place like Texas that's going to be decidedly red, there are lines around the buildings to go early vote. Places like Michigan, people are waiting to go early vote, whereas Republicans and conservatives normally don't do that, Ronny.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%, Joe. I think that's encouraging. I think that's indicative of what's about to happen here. That's why I'm encouraged as well, and I think that he's gonna win this. And I think that President Trump's been saying this for a while, and I think that people are taking it to heart. That's why we see some of these lines. We have to make this too big to rig. There have to be so many people coming out and overwhelming the polls voting for President Trump that they can't possibly just figure out any way to fraudulently take this election in any state or any county. And I think that's where we're at. I think the RNC is doing a better job now. They got new leadership in the RNCs, I think they've got lawyers out. They've got poll watchers out. They're doing stuff that wasn't done last time that should have been done. So I'm encouraged. I think the process is better. I think the Trump team is better. I think President Trump is on fire right now. I think that he's more popular right now than he's ever been, even when he was president. It's insane.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, it's insane in a very good way. Yeah, Laura Trump being the co-chair of the RNC is a really great thing. I just had her on a few days ago. And then Scott Pressler's out there beating the streets and getting people registered to vote who otherwise weren't registered to vote. It looks like we'll have about 100,000 observers and volunteers on Election Day. 4 years ago, Ronny, they illegally blocked out Republicans from even looking at it. Oh, you got to have social distancing. You got to be on the other side of the window. Then they're putting construction paper in the windows. They broke so many election laws in 2020 that I feel very confident that we're going to have more eyes on it, more actual presence there. And they can't say because of the pandemic, you can't do this, that, and the other. We have at least a better chance this time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, our biggest problem, Joe, as you alluded to it a while ago, is that whenever we do identify fraud, who's gonna pursue it? Who's gonna do something about it? Because to
Right.
be honest with you, it falls upon the state a lot of times, and a lot of times the attorney generals and the judges and the election officials in that state, they're part of the problem. I mean, they're okay with it, right? They don't want to know if somebody cheated or not
Right.
because they are okay with the outcome. So I think that that's what we're going to rely on. That's why I worry about Pennsylvania in particular, because they did things like change their laws. So if you're an illegal, you can get a driver's license or you can get a state issued ID if you're an illegal alien. And oh, by the way, you're going to automatically be registered to vote and automatically get a ballot mailed to whatever address you put on that stuff,
Wow.
unless you check a little tiny box on page 5 saying that you're not eligible to vote. Right? Somebody's tracking those votes, somebody or those ballots. Somebody's going to go out and get those. And then you see things like what happened in Virginia, where they're basically saying, "Hey, we know you identified a whole bunch of people that are illegal that are registered to vote, but you have to keep them on the, you have to still keep them, in your voter registration."
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
It is, and hopefully they won't get away with it. It's kind of interesting though, Ronnie. That side will say voter ID and ID laws are racist,
Yeah.
yet they're giving IDs to people who came across the border illegally, which I think should be illegal. So they're trying to play both sides of it. It's Dr. Ronny Jackson, District 13 Republican, great state of Texas. Always glad to have you on. Let's talk about Kamala Harris needing star power, even to get people to show up at rallies. She had Eminem the other day. She had Megan Thee Stallion, a while back. They announced that Beyonce would be at the DNC, then she didn't show up. I don't know what that was all about. Now suddenly in Beyonce's hometown in Houston, right here in our great state of Texas, that's how Kamala Harris is going to draw a crowd. Fill me on her even being here. Why come to Texas?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, Joe. I mean, I think the Ted Cruz race is a little tighter than Trump's race. I still
It
think
is.
Ted's good. He's going to win.
Yeah.
But he's not winning he's not polling at a largest margin as Trump is. Trump's
Right.
way ahead of Ted Cruz. So maybe this is an effort that maybe they think they can help Colin Allred and somehow or another get that Senate seat. Otherwise,
Yeah.
it doesn't really make any sense. I told somebody the other day she's welcome to stay here all the way through next Tuesday, and she can come to Amarillo. I'll help her host a rally here in Amarillo if she wants to stay here. As long as she just makes decisions like that, I'm okay with it, because I think it's ultimately just continuing to make things worse for her. But I think things are pretty bad for her already. I think having all these celebrities come in for her, it's just a last ditch effort. She's really reverted back to all the crazy stuff now, where she's going out and calling President Trump, Hitler and a Nazi, and all this. It's a desperate last attempt. It's a Hail Mary.
Well, I wanted to go there because you've got 2 assassination attempts, one of which he was shot in the ear. Thank God he turned to look at that illegal alien, chart.
Yeah.
2 assassination attempts that we know about. They would love to see him go away before the election day because I don't think they have much of a chance if it's fair, like you said. But what about that rhetoric? To say that he's a threat to democracy after 2 assassination attempps, saying that he loves Hitler and that he's a fascist is disgusting, because there's some... Ronnie, you know this better than I because you study medicine. There are people who are on the brink. They just
Yeah.
need to be touched or pushed a little bit to go and shoot somebody at Butler, Pennsylvania, to go in and wait 12 hours at a golf course in Palm Beach County. I mean, do you think they're doing this on purpose?
Oh, I think so. I don't think they care. I think that whenever this first happened, I think the Secret Service director at the time, I talked to President Trump's Secret Service detail on numerous occasions, as far back as a year and a half or so away, and I'd ask them how things were going, what they were seeing, if they're getting everything they needed, if anything I could help with from the congressional side, and they confided in me. And this was long before the assassination attempt, and they said, we don't get anything really that we ask for. We're kind of the outcast as far as
Wow.
the Secret Service details go. All the other former details are bigger than ours, right? And that's ridiculous, right? Because President Obama, President Bush, certainly all the other formers, they don't travel as much as President Trump does. They don't
Right.
have near the threats that he does. His detail should be the biggest because the detail should be based on threat alone, right? So,
Yeah.
but yet they were the smallest. They were the smallest former detail, and they didn't get some of the resources they asked for, like snipers and things of that nature. And so we saw what happened. And then you had the assassination attempt, And you're right, Joe. Some of these people that have Trump derangement syndrome, they are full-blown psychotic they're crazy, right? And these are people that think the TV's talking to them and stuff like that. And all you have to do is inspire those people with the rhetoric that's going around right now with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and all these morons on in the far left media on MSNBC and CNN, and you're going to keep inspiring this kind of behavior. It's been twice now that they've tried to kill him. And be honest with you, I was there the night that he was shot. I took care of him for the next like 7 or 8 days, and I can tell people, I think most people know, but he was literally 1 millimeter from dying, and not just dying but a horrific, overwhelming,
catastrophic shot.
Catastrophic shot. If he would have turned his head just a few degrees to the right or a few degrees to the left, it would have either went between his eyes or into his temple. And it's amazing. Thank God that didn't happen. But you look at that, and that alone should be enough for these people on the left to shut up, right? To just shut up.
And they won't, because they're desperate, as you said. That when you got Obama out there telling black men what they have to do, when you got him out there guilting people into voting for somebody because she somehow looks like them or something, which I don't think she does, there's a desperation there that we haven't seen for a long time. But I want to talk about something you just said. There are full-blown psychotics out there, like the last guy, and I'll say my opinion is he's psychotic.
Yeah.
Ronny, you're in Congress. Maybe you could tell me how we didn't know about this guy. He's a guy trying to recruit people from Afghanistan to go and fight in Ukraine against Russia, and he's trying to recruit people from Afghanistan who are afraid of the Taliban to go and wait in Taiwan until China attacks. How do our intelligence agencies not know about this guy who on the open web was trying to recruit people to go and fight in Afghanistan, to go fight in Ukraine and in Taiwan? How do we not know about this guy?
Yeah, I think there were people even in Ukraine with him that I heard talking that said that they worked in and around him when he was over there in Ukraine at times, and they were scared of the guy because they thought he was crazy, and that they had even reached out to the authorities. I think the FBI, in fact, and it had mentioned that you might want to look into this guy.
Yeah.
So there's really no reason why we shouldn't have known a lot about this guy and been able to stop this, other than just pure incompetence. Or maybe if there were threats that were related to Trump, maybe they didn't take him seriously. Because like I said before, part of the reason he didn't get the resources he didn't need, because the attitude at the Secret Service at the time, and I hope it's not the case now, but with the previous director, when she was in place, the attitude of her and of course the Secretary of Homeland Security, Mayorkas, who oversees the Secret Service, their whole attitude was like, who cares? It's Trump, right? There were death threats, whatever. They're like, who cares? It's Trump. They just didn't care.
Iran said we want to assassinate him. A state actor said we'd like to take him out, and the impeached Mayorkas does nothing. I don't understand. They said on television, all Americans, you saw this, Ronnie, they said we're giving him the full detail that the president has. Then they didn't do it.
Yeah.
They just didn't.
Yeah. We got to have some reforms, man. And the only way this stuff's going to change is if Trump becomes the head of state and commander in chief. Yeah. When he gets back to the White House, we'll start getting stuff cleaned up. There's a lot of corruption in D.C. The deep state is deep, believe me. A perfect example of that, I know we're not talking about that today, but John Kelly, man, that guy is the epitome of the deep state. I worked side by side with that guy for years, and he is the guy that thought that it was his job to run around and withhold information from the president and figure out who should be in what positions and who should be cabinet nominees, so on and so forth, because it was his job to do that, to protect the American people from the president. This guy was the chief of staff in the White House, and that was his attitude toward the president. He is the deep state.
Well, he is, and he's also the liar about suckers and losers. Yeah. 19 other people said that Trump never said that. He's also the liar that Trump didn't want to go to the cemetery because of his hair, which is untrue. It was too dangerous and inclement weather. They couldn't get there. Now he's the guy about Hitler, and nobody else can corroborate any of that. We're just supposed to believe John Kelly, who I don't know if you noticed, Ronnie, got that ass fired. He got fired, and now he hates Trump, and this is how he's going to try to get him back. So we can talk about that further next time. With this election coming up, though, Donald Trump holds these joyful rallies with music and he talks policy for an hour and a half. Goes out there, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. Get me back in there. I'm going to make America great again. We're going to at least love our country again. And then Kamala Harris, when asked a question by complicit town hall guy, Anderson Cooper, doesn't have an answer. What will you get done that you didn't get done? Well, I'll get some things done. We have to get things done, Anderson. We should really get things done. Or what's the one mistake that you've learned from? Well, it would have been a mistake not to learn things, but I did learn, so I didn't make any mistakes. What? How much money are you going to spend on people coming across the border illegally? Well, I prosecuted transnational gangs. Ronnie, what the hell am I looking at here? Donald Trump is literally saying, here's the open book. Here's what I want to do for you. And Kamala Harris is going to get tens of millions of votes, Ronnie. And she's not saying anything.
Yeah, I mean, it boggles my mind, Joe. I don't know what to tell you on that one. She's literally, like I've described her before, and I think it's pretty accurate. She's a box of rocks. I mean, she's far too stupid to be the vice president. She definitely completely unqualified to be the president. I heard them asking her the question the other day. So, what was what do you think's your biggest weakness? And she goes, well, some people will say this is a weakness, but I like to surround myself with really smart people. Who thinks that's? I mean, she's clueless. I mean, the stuff that comes out of her mouth is if you can even understand what she's saying, just is ridiculous. And so she's not had an original idea since she's been out there. She was right. Remember, the reason she's the vice president is because Joe Biden said long before when he was running, long before he was president, that he would pick a woman of color, a black female, to be his vice president. And that's she was on a short list for that, and she was one of the ones that ran for president among the other Democrat nominees. She was right. The first one out, by the way. Even her own party, they rejected her immediately, right? And then she ends up being the vice president, and now she's, for many of the same reasons, because they operate almost exclusively on identity politics. They pushed her up whenever Biden went out, and they should have done a better job. I mean, they're stuck with the dud now. I mean, she's completely incapable, and they don't really know what to do about it at this point.
Well, they can't switch her out again. I don't think they can, but the Democrats will do anything they can. It's Ronny Jackson, U.S. Representative, District 13, great state of Texas. Just about out of time, just one last thing on this. I pray he wins. If it's fair, you and I agree he will win rather easily. Right. But everybody's got to go and make sure their franchise is counted. You got to go and vote. Don't listen to us sitting here on the radio or television and think that it's in a bag. It's not in the bag. Having said that, once he gets in, Ronnie, what is the pattern that you've got to take if you're Donald Trump to get the tens of millions that will vote against him to understand that he's still going to be their president too? Because his policies last time lifted all boats.
Well, I think he's going to do that again, Joe. I think he's going to immediately make some significant changes that are going to people are going to feel on a day-to-day basis in their personal lives, and I think that's really going to be what people look to when they assess him early on. Yeah. He's going to make changes. He's going to make significant changes. He is for the people. I mean, that's why blue collar America and Hispanics and blacks and all these people that traditionally were associated with the Democrat Party. That's why they're all coming over and they're becoming Republicans now, and they're voting as Republican, because Donald J. Trump is about the American people, and he doesn't care who you are. If you're an American citizen, he has got your back.
Amazing that you've got my back. I love that you come on anytime we ask. Ronnie, thanks a million. I know that you love the country. We got to get the man back in office, and thanks again for coming on and talking about stuff that those who are watching and listening want to hear you talk about. It's District 13 Republican, great state of Texas, Dr. Ronny Jackson. Doc, I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joe.
Hi, buddy. We're back after this. Stay right here.